The bustling metropolis of Trion's central hub was alive with the hum of interstellar commerce and cultural exchange. Dr. Orion Hale, a renowned xenobiologist, navigated through the crowd with a tray of food, his eyes constantly observing the myriad of species around him. Orion had been stationed on Trion to study and document various alien habits and cultures, aiming to enhance human understanding and cooperation. Orion found an open table near a large viewing window overlooking the docking bays, where ships of all sizes glittered against the backdrop of deep space. As he settled down, his gaze was drawn to an unusual figure seated alone 2 tables away. The alien had striking silver skin and eyes that seemed to glow with an inner light. Her presence was commanding yet serene amidst the bustling environment. Intrigued, Orion remembered the briefing on her species, the lumens, known for their enigmatic nature and rare visits to human territories. Driven by professional curiosity and personal fascination, Orion decided to approach her. With a polite smile, he walked over, carrying an extra cookie from his tray. "Hello there," Orion greeted, stopping at her table with a respectful nod. "I'm Dr. Orion Hale. I couldn't help but notice that you're a lumen. We don't see many of your kind here. May I join you?" The alien, whose name was Zara, looked up with a hint of surprise in her glowing eyes. "You may, Dr. Hale," she replied in a melodic voice that resonated with an unidentifiable harmony. "I am Zara. Your observance is correct. We lumens seldom travel this far from our systems." Orion sat down, placing the cookie in front of her. "I thought perhaps you might enjoy trying something from our cuisine. This is a simple human delicacy, a cookie. Harmless to us, but I hope it's agreeable to your diet." Zara tilted her head, eyeing the cookie curiously. "I am familiar with your human foods from the database, but I have never consumed one." "It is agreeable to try," she said, her hand moving gracefully to pick up the cookie. As Zara tasted the cookie, Orion watched her reaction closely, hoping it would be a pleasant one. "So, what brings a lumen to Trion?" he asked, eager to learn more about her and perhaps foster a dialogue that could lead to deeper interspecies understanding. "I am here to study human architecture," Zara explained after a moment, her voice calm despite the growing rush of emotions she felt from the cookie's effects, which were yet unknown to Orion. "Your structures are quite fascinating, combining functionality with aesthetic in ways that lumen constructions do not." "That's fascinating," Orion replied, genuinely interested. "Architecture is a passion of mine as well. Maybe you could tell me about lumen structures sometime. We can exchange knowledge." Before Orion could continue, Zara's demeanor shifted. The cookie, laced unintentionally with ingredients that acted as mild stimulants for lumens, began to affect her. Her eyes widened, and a flush spread across her silver cheeks. "Dr. Hale," Zara interrupted, her voice tense, "I am feeling unusual effects from this cookie. Is this normal?" Realizing something was wrong, Orion's concern grew. "No, that's not normal at all. Let me help you. We should get you to our medical center to make sure you're okay." As Zara nodded in agreement, her movement slightly erratic, Orion quickly stood, supporting her by her arm. "I'm sorry for this unexpected reaction," he said, filled with worry, as they made their way out of the cafeteria. The eyes of many patrons followed them, their exit marking the beginning of an unforeseen adventure, one that would test the boundaries of human and alien interaction under the most unexpected circumstances. As they left the cafeteria behind, the vastness of space loomed outside, a reminder of the infinite possibilities and challenges that lay ahead. The bustling corridors of Trion, usually a place of vibrant commerce and social interactions, felt oppressively narrow as Orion guided the visibly distressed Zara through the crowd. "Please, just hold on, Zara. We're almost there," Orion reassured her, sensing her increasing discomfort. Zara, struggling to maintain her composure, nodded slightly, her glowing eyes darting around, taking in the sea of unfamiliar faces. The medical center was a state-of-the-art facility designed to cater to the diverse biological needs of countless species. As they entered, Dr. Elise Graham, the lead medical officer known for her expertise in xenobiology, noticed them immediately. Her sharp eyes quickly assessed the situation. "Orion, what happened?" Dr. Graham asked, approaching swiftly with a medical scanner in hand. "It's the cookie I gave her," Orion explained, his voice tinged with regret. "I thought it was safe. Zara, this is Dr. Graham. She's the best we have." Zara managed a weak smile, even as her body began to react more violently. Dr. Graham ran the scanner over her, frowning at the readings that flashed on the screen. "It's reacting with her biochemistry. Looks like some sort of hyperstimulant effect. We need to flush her system immediately," Dr. Graham declared, directing them towards an isolation room equipped with advanced medical technology. Inside the room, Zara was placed on a diagnostic bed, her body now shimmering with a bioluminescent glow, a natural defense mechanism. Orion watched anxiously as Dr. Graham prepared a detoxifying serum. "This should help, but I need to warn you, the effects might be intense," Dr. Graham informed them as she administered the serum through a dermal patch. Zara's breathing slowed, and her glow began to subside. Orion, relieved, took a seat beside her. "I am really sorry about this. I didn't mean for any of this to happen," he apologized. Zara turned to look at him, her expression softening. "It is not your fault, Orion. You could not have known. I am grateful for your help." As the serum worked, Zara's symptoms eased, but the incident had already sparked a flurry of activity outside the isolation room. Word of the incident spread quickly, catching the attention of station security and other curious onlookers. The presence of a distressed lumen, a rare visitor, caused a stir among the community, leading to rumors and speculations. Meanwhile, Orion received a call from his superior, Director Ava Clark, who had been alerted to the situation. "Orion, I need a full report on this and ensure Dr. Graham documents everything. We can't afford an incident, especially not with a lumen," she instructed firmly. "Yes, Director. I'll handle it," Orion responded, aware of the gravity of the situation. Once Zara was stable, Orion escorted her out of the medical center, only to be met by a security team. The head of security, a stern man named Captain Harris, stepped forward. "Dr. Hale, we need to speak with Miss Zara about the incident. Protocol dictates we understand exactly what happened," Captain Harris stated, his tone indicating it was not a request but a requirement. Zara, still recovering, nodded in agreement. Orion felt a surge of protectiveness, but knew cooperation was the best path forward. They moved to a secure conference room where Zara explained her experience in detail, her voice steady but her eyes haunted by the ordeal. As the meeting concluded, Orion and Zara found themselves at the heart of a developing storm, their actions and decisions from here on not only affecting their own futures, but potentially the delicate balance of interspecies relations on Tryon. After the exhaustive debriefing with Captain Harris and the security team, Orion and Zara left the conference room, only to be greeted by a corridor bustling with whispering onlookers and flashing media drones. The news of Zara's adverse reaction to a human cookie and the subsequent medical emergency had quickly morphed into a spectacle. Feeling a growing discomfort with the invasive attention Zara was receiving, Orion pulled her aside into a quieter junction. "Listen, Zara, I think it's best if we lay low for a bit," Orion suggested, scanning the area for a less conspicuous route. "The attention isn't just a nuisance, it could escalate into something neither of us wants." Zara, still slightly pale but regaining her composure, nodded in agreement. "Your concern is justified, Orion. This spectacle could hinder my mission and studies here." Opting for discretion, they took a detour through the service corridors of the spaceport, a less frequented part of the station where the hum of the main thoroughfares was replaced by the rhythmic pulse of machinery and the occasional echo of distant footsteps. As they moved, Orion's communicator buzzed, an incoming message from Dr. Graham, marked urgent. He glanced at the screen, his brow furrowing. "Elise says the substance in the cookie has unknown long-term effects. We need to run more tests to ensure there's no lasting harm." Zara stopped, her gaze intense. "I appreciate your concern, Orion, but I cannot afford to be a subject of human medical inquiries indefinitely. My people are wary of such intrusions." Understanding her predicament, Orion pocketed his communicator. Okay, let's get you somewhere safe first. We can figure out the rest later. Their path led them to an old maintenance hangar, seldom used and mostly forgotten, a relic from the early days of the spaceport. Inside, the vast, shadowy interior offered a temporary sanctuary. Orion knew a few crew members who used these hangars as shortcuts or for unofficial breaks. He contacted a trusted friend, Vega, a technician with access to various station resources. Vega arrived quickly, his expression a mix of curiosity and concern. Orion, what's this I hear about you harboring a Lumen fugitive? He joked lightly, but his eyes were sharp, assessing Zara's condition. Not a fugitive, just avoiding unnecessary drama, Orion replied, introducing Zara. Vega, she needs a place to stay off the grid. Can you help? Vega nodded, his demeanor turning serious. I know just the spot. Follow me. He led them through a series of labyrinthine tunnels until they arrived at a small, unmarked access door. Inside was a compact living space equipped with basic amenities, a safe house of sorts, used occasionally for situations requiring discretion. This will do, Zara said, examining her new quarters with reserved appreciation. Thank you, Vega. Anything for Orion, Vega replied, clapping Orion on the shoulder. I'll leave you too. Just buzz when you need to get out or if you need anything. Once Vega departed, Orion turned to Zara. We should be safe here for the time being. I'll stay nearby in case you need anything. We need to figure out our next steps. Zara sat down, her alien elegance stark against the utilitarian backdrop of the safe house. Your world is complex. The incident today has shown me how precarious our position is here. Yeah, it's not just about us anymore, Orion admitted, feeling the weight of the situation. This could affect human-lumen relations, could even escalate if we're not careful. We must be cautious indeed, Zara agreed, her voice steady despite the chaos of the day. But we also need to clear up this misunderstanding about the cookie and its effects. My people must not see this as an act of aggression. Orion nodded, his resolve hardening. Then we'll clear it up together. As they settled into the makeshift sanctuary, outside the safe house, the station continued its restless pace, unaware of the burgeoning alliance forming in its hidden shadows, an alliance that could either bridge their worlds or break them apart. Hidden within the utilitarian confines of the safe house, Orion and Zara delved into a hasty research effort. They aimed to understand the chemical reaction that had caused such an adverse effect on Zara, hopeful that this knowledge could mitigate any potential diplomatic fallout. Orion set up a makeshift lab with equipment Vega had discreetly brought, turning the space into a hub of activity. As they worked, the truth about the cookie ingredients began to unfold. It seems the cookie contained trace amounts of xylarine, Orion explained, poring over the data on his tablet. A compound naturally found in some human food crops, but psychoactive for lumens. Zara, looking over his shoulder, nodded gravely. In lumen culture, substances that alter mind or body are considered sacred, used only in significant rites. An accidental exposure could be seen as a violation or a form of disrespect. This explains the reaction and the spectacle, Orion muttered, frustration evident in his tone. We need to communicate this to both our governments before things escalate further. Their work was interrupted by a soft chime at the door. Cautiously, Orion peered through the security monitor to see a figure he didn't recognize, a young woman with strikingly sharp features and a gaze that seemed to cut through the dim lighting of the corridor. Who is it? Orion asked through the comm. Name's Alara, the woman replied, her voice confident and charming. I'm here because you need help and I'm offering it. Skeptical yet intrigued, Orion opened the door. What kind of help? He inquired as Alara stepped into the light, revealing the insignia of the Trian Free Traders, a network known for their neutrality in political affairs. Information, Alara said, glancing towards Zara before focusing back on Orion. You're trying to stop a potential interspecies incident, right? My contact saw your little incident at the cafeteria. We believe in the free flow of information, and it seems you need it to clear up this mess. Zara, who had remained silent, now stepped forward. "What do you want in return?" she asked, her voice steady despite the clear suspicion in her eyes. "Simple," Alara smiled slightly. "When you clear this up, you owe us a favor. Nothing more. We believe keeping peace is beneficial for all parties involved." After a brief discussion, Orion and Zara agreed to Alara's terms. The trader provided them with communications logs from the spaceport that showed a heightened interest in the incident from several suspicious sources, suggesting that not everyone wanted the issue resolved peacefully. Armed with this new information, Orion turned to Zara. "We need to be careful who we trust. This is more than just a misunderstanding. There are players here who'd benefit from a conflict between our people." Zara nodded, her expression resolute. "Let's prepare a detailed report with our findings and the medical data. We'll need to present it to both our governments. Transparency might be our best defense against those who seek to manipulate the situation for their own gain." As they worked into the night, compiling their findings into a comprehensive report, Orion couldn't help but feel the weight of responsibility. This was no longer just about a simple allergic reaction to a human cookie, but a potential spark that could ignite tensions across species lines. Meanwhile, Alara departed as silently as she had arrived, her motives wrapped in mystery, but her assistance proving invaluable. In the shadows of the station's less frequented corridors, whispers of her visit began to stir among those who monitored the comings and goings of the spaceport's more secretive visitors. Orion and Zara knew that the next steps they took could mean the difference between peace and conflict. In the early hours of a muted Trian morning, Orion and Zara, having spent the night piecing together their findings, finally completed their comprehensive report. The document detailed the chemical analysis of the cookie, the unintended psychoactive effects on Zara, and highlighted the potential misuse of the incident by entities wanting to stir interspecies conflict. With their report in hand, they decided the next step was to present their findings directly to the leaders of the Trian colony and, if possible, to Lumen representatives. Orion contacted Director Ava Clark to arrange a meeting, using his credentials as a xenobiologist to underscore the urgency and sensitivity of the situation. Director Clark, recognizing the delicacy of the matter, agreed to facilitate a meeting. She arranged for a neutral location within the governmental complex, a place equipped with security and privacy for delicate diplomatic engagements. As Orion and Zara made their way to the meeting, the bustling streets of Trian felt overwhelmingly normal, a stark contrast to the undercurrent of tension they were navigating. Upon arriving, they were greeted by Director Clark, who ushered them into a conference room. Representatives from various human departments were present, and via a secure video link, several Lumen officials, including a high-ranking diplomat named Varek, joined the meeting. "Thank you for coming on such short notice," Director Clark began, nodding to both the human and Lumen parties. "Dr. Hale has some important findings that could prevent a potential crisis between our species." Orion stepped forward, clearing his throat as he prepared to present. "Thank you, Director." "What began as a simple cultural exchange," he said, gesturing to Zara, "has unveiled a serious misunderstanding that has the potential for significant diplomatic repercussions." He proceeded to explain the scientific details, carefully laying out the data they had collected. Zara then took the floor, speaking eloquently about the cultural significance of psychoactive substances in Lumen society and the potential misinterpretations that could arise from such incidents. The Lumen diplomat, Varek, a stern but fair individual, listened intently. After the presentation, he spoke. "This is a serious matter. The misuse of such an incident could indeed strain our relations. We appreciate your thorough investigation and transparency. However, just as the meeting seemed to be leading towards mutual understanding, an aide rushed in, whispering urgently to Director Clark. Her expression changed rapidly, becoming grave. She turned to the assembly. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but we've just received word of an unauthorized leak concerning this incident. It appears someone has twisted the facts and is spreading misinformation, claiming that the human government deliberately poisoned a Lumen." The room erupted in murmurs, and the tension skyrocketed. Varek's expression hardened. "This complicates matters. We must act quickly to control the narrative and reaffirm our commitment to peace." Orion and Zara exchanged a glance, realizing the stakes had just been raised. Director Clark called for calm. "We have the truth on our side. Let's work together to issue a joint statement clarifying the facts and condemning the spread of false information." The remainder of the meeting was spent drafting this joint statement, with both human and lumen representatives contributing. As they worked, Orion felt a mix of frustration and hope. The path to maintaining peace was fraught with challenges, but with every word they wrote, they were weaving a stronger bond between their peoples. Once the statement was finalized, Orion and Zara left the governmental complex, the weight of their responsibility hanging heavy between them. The battle for peace was far from over, but they had made significant progress. As they walked back through the streets of Tryon, the city seemed a little less normal, a little more charged with the promise and peril of the future. After the joint statement was released, a fragile calm settled over Tryon. However, the underlying tensions caused by the misinformation campaign had not fully dissipated. Orion and Zara continued to work together, carefully monitoring the situation while planning their next steps to solidify the fragile peace. Their efforts were interrupted by a sudden and unexpected summons from the Lumen High Council, demanding that Zara return to her home planet immediately for consultation. The message was terse and provided no details, but the implications were clear. The situation was more severe than they had hoped. Before her departure, Zara met with Orion in a quiet garden within the colony, a place they had found solace in during the chaotic days. "Orion, I must go, but I fear my people are preparing for the worst. The mistrust has deepened, and there are factions within the council who see this incident as proof that humans are not to be trusted," Zara confided, her voice laced with worry. Orion looked at her, frustration and concern etching his features. "We've come so far, Zara. Isn't there something we can do to convince them otherwise?" Zara paused, considering. "There is one possibility," she finally said. "An ancient treaty between humans and lumens exists, long forgotten by most. It speaks of peace and mutual understanding, a bond forged centuries ago that predates current hostilities. If we could find it and present it to the council, it might remind them of the long history of cooperation that once existed between our races." Determined, Orion nodded. "Then let's find it. Do you know where we could start looking?" "My people keep extensive archives, but accessing them might be difficult now," Zara explained. "However, there is a historical site on a neutral planet, old and mostly forgotten, where copies of such documents were stored for safekeeping. It's a long shot, but it might be our best chance." With a plan in mind, Orion and Zara quickly arranged for a discreet journey to the neutral planet, knowing that the success of their mission could mean the difference between peace and war. They traveled incognito, avoiding any attention, reaching the planet after a tense and uneventful journey. The historical site was an ancient library buried deep underground, filled with relics and documents from a bygone era of galactic diplomacy. The air was thick with dust and the scent of old paper. They searched tirelessly, navigating through crumbling hallways and vast chambers filled with artifacts. Finally, in a dimly lit room, Orion discovered a metallic case engraved with symbols of peace and alliance. Inside, protected by ancient preservation fields, lay the treaty they were seeking. It was more than a document. It was a symbol of the possibility of unity and harmony. With the treaty in hand, they prepared to return to Zara's home planet. However, as they made their way back to their ship, they were ambushed by a group of militants opposed to peace. The militants, driven by a hardline faction within the Lumen government, sought to seize the treaty and destroy it, believing that war with humans was inevitable. A tense standoff ensued, but Orion and Zara managed to negotiate their way out, leveraging the very ideals of the treaty they had just recovered. With the militants hesitating, they made a swift escape, leaving the aggressors with words of peace that sowed seeds of doubt among them. Returning to Zara's planet with the ancient treaty, they were met with a mix of skepticism and awe. Presenting the document to the High Council, they argued passionately for a revival of the ancient alliance, highlighting the mutual benefits of peace and cooperation. As the council deliberated, Orion and Zara waited anxiously, knowing that their efforts had sparked a crucial debate that would determine the future of human-lumen relations. The High Council's chamber on Zara's homeworld was a cavernous space, its walls inscribed with the history of the Lumen people, a civilization that had thrived on diplomacy yet was prepared for war. As Orion and Zara presented the ancient treaty, they could feel the weight of centuries of tradition and skepticism pressing down upon them. The revelation of the treaty sparked intense debates among the council members. While some viewed the document as a sign of hope, others saw it as an irrelevant relic, unfit to dictate current interstellar policies. The discussions were heated, with voices raised in passionate argument on both sides. Outside the council chamber, tensions were escalating. News of the treaty's discovery had spread, polarizing the populace. Some rallied for peace, inspired by the possibility of renewing old alliances, while others, fueled by recent propaganda, prepared for conflict, believing it the only way to ensure the sovereignty of their species. Amidst the political turmoil, a militant faction that had opposed Orion and Zara's mission mobilized, intending to seize control of the government to prevent any move toward peace. Their first act was to launch a series of strikes against human outposts near Lumen territory, aiming to force a military response that would derail any talks of diplomacy. Alerted to the imminent threat, Orion and Zara hurriedly left the council session, determined to prevent the conflict from escalating. They contacted Director Clark and warned her of the situation, urging restraint and a measured response to avoid full-scale war. Director Clark, understanding the delicacy of the situation, coordinated with her advisors to initiate a defensive stance, avoiding aggressive retaliation. She also opened a back-channel communication with the Lumen peace advocates, hoping to strengthen their position and stabilize the situation. Meanwhile, on the front lines, the situation deteriorated. The human outposts, caught off guard by the sudden attacks, suffered significant damage. The outpost commanders, pressured by their need to protect their people, struggled to hold back from returning fire. In a desperate bid to turn the tide, Orion and Zara decided to take a more direct approach. They negotiated a meeting with the leaders of the militant faction, using the ancient treaty as a symbol of what could be lost to needless conflict. The meeting was tense, held on neutral ground, with both parties warily eyeing each other. Orion spoke first, his voice firm yet conciliatory. This treaty isn't just a piece of history, it's a testament to what our ancestors believed could be achieved through cooperation. We are at a crossroads where we can choose to honor that belief or destroy any chance of peace. Zara, standing beside him, addressed her people in their native tongue, her words eloquent and moving. We have seen what war brings: destruction, sorrow, and the loss of what makes us proud as lumens. With this treaty, we have a chance to forge a different path, one that leads to prosperity and peace for all. The militants, hardened by years of distrust, listened with a mixture of skepticism and intrigue. Their leader, a veteran of many conflicts, eyed the treaty warily. And if we cease fire, what guarantees do we have that humans will not betray us? Orion responded, none, but our word and actions. Peace is a leap of faith, but it is a leap worth taking. The discussions continued for hours, with negotiations teetering on the edge of collapse several times. However, the combined diplomatic efforts of Orion, Zara, and the peace faction within the Lumen Council gradually began to wear down the militants' resolve. As dawn broke over the negotiation site, a provisional ceasefire was agreed upon. It was fragile, tentative, and filled with potential pitfalls, but it was a start. Returning to the council chamber, Orion and Zara watched as the news of the ceasefire was greeted with relief and cautious optimism. The council, influenced by the outcome of the negotiations, voted to uphold the principles of the ancient treaty, committing to a renewed dialogue with humanity. As the chamber erupted in a mix of applause and dissent, Orion and Zara shared a weary but hopeful look. They had averted a war, at least for now, and opened a new chapter in human-lumen relations, one filled with the promise of peace. As Trine buzzed with the cautious optimism of newly established peace talks, Orion and Zara took their roles as interspecies diplomats with serious commitment. They had become symbols of hope for a possible harmonious future, and their every step was watched by both hopeful allies and skeptical critics. In the wake of the ceasefire, the human and Lumen governments moved swiftly to solidify the fragile peace. A series of diplomatic meetings were scheduled to discuss the terms of a formal peace treaty, using the ancient document as a foundation. These discussions were complex and fraught with historical grievances, but the mutual fear of returning to the brink of war lent a pragmatic tone to the negotiations. Orion was deeply involved in drafting the new treaty, applying his knowledge of Lumen culture and human political dynamics to bridge understanding between the two sides. Zara, with her diplomatic grace and deep understanding of her people's perspectives, worked tirelessly to reassure her leaders and the public that peace with humans was not only desirable but essential for their future prosperity. During this time, Orion and Zara organized a landmark event on Tryon, a cultural exchange festival featuring human and Lumen art, music, food, and technology. The festival was designed to foster grassroots connections between the individuals of both species, moving the focus from high-level political negotiations to personal interactions. The event was a vibrant affair, with colorful stalls displaying human and Lumen crafts side by side, music performances that blended styles from both cultures, and food stalls offering tastes of each other's cuisines, carefully prepared to suit all biological needs. The highlight was a joint performance by human and Lumen musicians, which ended with a powerful rendition of a new anthem symbolizing their hopeful future. Despite the success of the festival, there were incidents of protest and distrust from factions within both species who were not ready to embrace this new relationship. However, the majority of attendees responded with enthusiasm, and the media coverage highlighted the positive outcomes, helping to sway public opinion towards support for the peace process. As the festival concluded, Orion and Zara stood together on the stage, looking out over the crowd of mixed species cheering for the performers. It was a moment of triumph, not just for their diplomatic efforts, but for the possibility of unity and diversity. The final peace treaty was signed several weeks later in a grand ceremony broadcast across both human and Lumen territories. The treaty outlined not only the cessation of hostilities, but also established several joint ventures, including a combined research initiative and a mixed-species military task force designed to maintain peace and respond to non-human threats. Orion and Zara, once mere representatives of their species, had now become ambassadors of a combined future. As they stood together, watching the signatures being etched onto the historic document, they knew the real work was just beginning. The treaty was a promise, and fulfilling that promise would require continuous effort and mutual understanding. The story ended with a hopeful but realistic view. Peace had been achieved, not through the absence of conflict, but through the presence of ongoing dialogue and compromise, a lesson for any who dare to dream of a better universe. And that's the story of how unity was forged amidst chaos and conflict. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to check out our next video on your screen now. Dive deeper into the world of interstellar diplomacy and discover another thrilling tale of adventure and alliance. Click to watch and continue exploring the vast universe of Sci-Fi Story Vault.